America is not ready for this conversation. Rich, entitled women who don't want to go through the process of labor, that don't want to become pregnant, they rent a womb for their child. Rich couples, celebrity couples.
And she raises
They don't
the
want
child.
to put their body through all of that. They don't want their, vaginas to be messed up. These are the entitled. I mean, this is why people do this, really. Like these disgusting feminist. So there's been embryos that are 30 years old that are born. So imagine being almost 31 when the day that you're born.
Yeah.
Abortion clinic in New Mexico that is started by the Satanic Temple. I mean, this is how sick and demented this industry has become.
AJ Hurley is a former respiratory therapist and now is the National Outreach Coordinator at the White Rose Resistance pro-life organization. In 2022, he found a box with the 5 aborted babies and started a fight for their JusticeForTheFive. In 2022, also March, AJ has been arrested with his peers in San Francisco while protesting against fetal experimentation. Aaron Jonathan, AJ, is a man of God and is fighting his toughest fight for the unborn. Welcome to the podcast once again, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Let's go IVF.
Okay.
So if you would ask me a few years ago about the IVF, I would say that's a great idea. One of the options if you can have babies, right? But as more as I read, as more as I dive into it, that's not as good as it can see in the first place, right? What's wrong with the IVF?
America is not ready for this conversation.
They are.
Church is not ready for this conversation. We have zero conception of bioethics. We have zero understanding of how to apply morality to the human nature. Zero.
What do you mean? Unpack.
What I mean by that is we've been inculcated and discipled in violence in the womb for the last 50 years. It's the air we breathe. It's the onslaught of propaganda that we receive every single day, bombarding us like a hurricane through our digital media, through every every media platform, entertainment, every area of digital advertising. It's always how unborn children are really just clumps of cells, how they're not really human beings, how they're just dehumanizing, like Hitler's
with the Jews?
Youth, right? Hitler's youth raised in a whole milieu that told them that they were the Aryan race and that everyone else was subhuman. This is the air that we breathe, is that human beings in the womb don't have value, and that personhood is something that we can arbitrarily pick and choose, that human nature isn't what gives us rights and dignity and value. And so when it comes to what's in the womb, we have dehumanized children. So the question about an embryo, it's not even a thought for most Christians as the value of an embryo, but they're nonetheless human. So when I say that we're not ready for this conversation, is we're in spiritual and moral infancy in our understanding of moral intuition. And so, when a human being in the 3rd trimester can be legally killed and sanctioned in many states in the U.S., when this next election will most likely be decided on whether or not we can kill our human beings in the womb. We're not ready to have a conversation to really understand the gravity and nature of the value of a human embryo, because we've devalued it in the hearts and minds of the collective conscious for 50 years. With that being said, right, it's just a matter of logical consistency. If a human being is valuable such that no one can take its life, why do not all human beings have value? So there's 2 questions. One is, what's in the womb from conception human, and is it alive? That's the only questions that matter, right? So if it's living and if it's a human being,
from day one,
from the time that it starts to become so, we should give equal dignity such that we can't intentionally kill them. But the reason why we can't seem to have an accurate understanding of this question of IVF is because we don't even know basic 101 of bioethics or moral understandings of the dignity of the human nature.
So I believe people are just uninformed, just like I was just a few years ago. IVF is good for the parents, for the future parents, for the couple that can get pregnant. That's it. But what was the process? How is it all being made? I didn't care at all. And I believe most of the people don't care at all. They just want to get pregnant.
Well, and what I mean by this is like, okay, a human being as a toddler is still in an early stage of development, right? It can't even walk yet. It can't talk. It can't express its ideas. It's barely conscious. It barely has its own concept of identity over time, right? Several months outside of the womb, babies still aren't conscious. That's why there's a guy named Peter Singer, who's actually the bioethicist, chief guy at bioethics at Princeton University, is what I understand. He actually takes this idea of personhood and is egregiously immoral, but actually consistent. And he says, what gives you personhood is your ability to be conscious. Well, your consciousness gives you, if your consciousness gives you personhood, the problem is babies aren't fully conscious until about 3 months outside of the womb. And so, which is why he thinks that you can kill a baby up to the level of consciousness, even 3 months outside of the womb.
He really thinks so?
Well, but we say it's crazy, but is it any less crazy that we do it 3 months earlier? That's the question, right? Like a baby can live outside of the womb at 21 weeks. 40 weeks is fully ready to, 40 weeks is 36 to 40 weeks is when babies are born, right? Fully formed and outside.
You saw my son, Richard. Yeah. So he's 5.5 now. So he was born at 36 weeks.
There you go. But
they kill those babies. They can kill those babies.
Oh, yeah. You can kill a baby to the day of birth in America. And if you don't believe me, just literally type up. You can go to Colorado. There's an abortionist named Warren Hearn, Dr. Warren Hearn. Google Warren Hearn, abortion, Colorado. He's in Denver, Colorado. And write openly on their website, first, second, third trimester abortions. They advertise openly on their website. If you don't believe me, look up the DuPont Clinic in Washington, D.C. Look up Cesare Santangelo's Washington Surgery Center, where the babies that we had found outside of the Washington Surgery Center there. Look up JusticeForTheFive, the third trimester babies that I held in my arms that were found outside of that clinic.
Let's get back to the IVF.
Yeah. So
explain to people why it's so bad.
So
maybe you should explain the process.
So I'll get to the process, but the basic principle of the matter is, if it's bad to kill a human being as a toddler, but not because it's less developed, then why at third trimester? Why at second trimester? Why at first trimester? And to the purpose of our conversation, why it's when it's in the embryonic stages, right? So embryo, fetus, infant, toddler, the teenager, human, geriatric, these are just stages of human development.
Yes.
They're all equally and whole human beings from the moment that human being starts to grow. So the question why IVF is as equally wrong, though not as gruesome, as other forms of dehumanization of what's in the womb, is because only 7% of children or embryos or human beings that are created through IVF are ever born. 7%. So, 93% of the babies created, the human beings created in IVF, are either discarded and thrown down, flushed down a drain or a toilet, or are indefinitely frozen on ice. There's over, I think the estimates are between 1 and 4 million embryos right now on ice. And so if I was to tell, and here's the tricky part of this is most people are hearing this, and everybody, nearly everybody goes into IVF with the best of intentions, incredible intentions. I mean, my wife we've been married for 8 years. For the second we got married, we have not been able to conceive, right? It's one of the hardest things that we've ever had to deal with, right? I mean, I could cry just thinking of the fact that I'll probably never be a father, right? We're fostering now, but, and we've been able to experience a little bit of joy, but I understand how hard it is. And so there's a lot of sympathy and compassion that goes into this conversation. But I'm sorry, but if someone approached me and said, I can give you a child, but you'll have to kill 93% of the children that are made in order to have that baby. Would you do it? I would say no. I'm not sacrificing 93% of my children.
Let's put it not this way. So not 93%, but if you want to have a child, 9 of them prior to that have to be killed.
Yeah, exactly. So
9 out of 10.
So 90%. Let me phrase it that way. So if someone approached me and said, I'll give you a child, but 1 out of your 10 babies, 9 of your babies are going to be either flushed down the drain to meet American sewers or are never going to come into this world. Would you do that? Would you take that? I would say absolutely not. But for some reason, Americans, Christians, conservatives are okay with sacrificing 90% of the children in order to have that one. And it's completely inconsistent.
I believe they just don't think about it at all. Like IVF and IVF, that's it. An embryo, I'm going to have my kid? Yes. What's the price? Dollar-wise. They pay the price, that's it. They don't even think about it. Maybe even if they think about it right now, for instance, when they're listening, so the embryos are what? Like this? It's nothing. If I can flush it to the toilet,
your
it's
child
nothing.
is your baby is this? What's this?
Yeah, but it's just a matter of time.
It's arbitrary, right? So it's like so the fundamental presupposition there is if it's small, it's less valuable. So this is the Lincoln-Douglas debates that occurred during slavery. And I'll maybe botch the quote, but in the debates, Lincoln said, if it's skin color that gives you your value, be careful, because by that metric, you'll be enslaved to the first person you meet with a skin color fairer than your own. And then he says, so it's IQ then. But be careful, because if it's IQ, you can be a slave to the first person you meet with an IQ higher than your own. And for our conversation, so it's size then.
It's size then.
So be careful, because you'll be enslaved by the first person, mightier and stronger or larger than you are.
Let's go to the process of the IVF. How does it look like? What is that?
So what happens is they take sperm and egg, and they fertilize an egg, a human egg, and then once the sperm dies, the egg dies, and a new embryo emerges, and then so they'll typically do anywhere from 5 to 15 embryos at a time. Depending on a whole host of factors, right? And then they sort through those embryos, and then they choose the ones that are best. If there's any chromosomal abnormalities,
they do it outside the womb?
In a microscope. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they examine these embryos, and then They can see the rapid growth of these embryos and see, they just have scientific testing on which embryos they do genetic testing on them. You can determine everything from gender to, it's encoded from the very DNA, from the very moment of conception. Mm-hmm. Everything that is determined already, from your skin color to your eye color to your gender, everything is encoded in the DNA.
And they can read it.
Yes. So, and there's gene editing and stuff. I don't know all the aspects of that because that's beyond my purview, but I do know that several friends of mine, unfortunately, have gone through several, because they had 2 girls and they wanted a boy so bad. They went through, I don't even know how many embryos, just throwing away embryos until they could get a boy. Oh yeah, dude. Oh, absolutely.
So they can get a baby.
These are Christian families, brother. Christian families.
Let me get this right. So
in Reformed Christian circles.
They couldn't get pregnant. They go to the IVF.
No, they had 2 girls, but they wanted a boy, a rich Asian family. And so I don't know how many, but
they didn't want to get just a regular sex just to get pregnant regularly, normally, because they can't. They just wanted a boy.
They wanted a boy.
That's so twisted.
So you're spending tens of thousands and thousands of dollars to get that boy, to implement that boy, and you're throwing away daughter after daughter,
crazy.
Flushing away daughter after daughter after daughter.
That's demonic.
Well, and when it's just, it's all demonic. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's eugenics is what it is. You're selectively.
But there's gradation. Okay, that's bad, but when you even can get pregnant, but now you can, and you don't like the gender, and second, third, fourth, fifth time you don't like the gender and still flush it to the toilet.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. But even in that conversation, I get it. It's more bad because of your intention is also bad. Mm. But even if my intentions are good, my intention doesn't justify throwing my offspring down the toilet, or flushing them down a drain. And so when I say Christians and, when I say even moral religious people, or when I say, the GOP isn't ready for this conversation, it's a reflection of the moral bankruptcy that we are at as a society.
But do you think they acknowledge this whole process, that they kill the babies,
No, because
they just don't acknowledge. They don't understand.
You've dehumanized them from day one. If your presupposition are these aren't human beings, and actually it's funny because they changed the definition in the medical literature for when human life begins. So originally, conception was defined to mean fertilization, the moment that a new embryo explodes into existence, right?
Light.
Yes, exactly. Well, and you can see that there's ions that fire off, which is really, really cool. There's this flash of light when a new human being which is, talk about like the Bible, thousands of years before even microscopy or anything could be understood. Let there be light is the first thing that God says when he makes all of existence. And that same flash of light, let there be light, when a new human being is created. But it's just a wild.
So they changed the description.
Oh yeah, sorry. Conception. Yeah, thank you for keeping me on track. Conception used to mean that moment, but then they changed the word conception to mean implantation. And one of the reasons why they did was because they wanted to really lay the groundwork in the collective kind of understanding for the pushing of birth control, right? Because some birth controls kill an embryo that hasn't implanted yet. And so they changed the definition of conception to mean implantation so that people didn't feel bad about being on hormonal birth control. That's a whole nother conversation. But so fertilization now means that moment of a human's being's existence. And conception in the medical literature is implantation. So most doctors will say life begins at implantation, not conceptions. And this is even repeated by pastors that I know.
So you take the sperm, you take the egg, you fertilize it. You take how many eggs? You fertilize it, you said 10?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed over time, but anywhere from 5 to 10 to as much as like maybe 15 and are frozen. Those other embryos are then are frozen and stored for a later date. And you can pull from those. And then, so they create the embryos. They selectively get rid of or reduce the ones that have any chromosomal abnormalities at all. They throw those and discard them.
Immediately or after some days?
Depends. It depends on there are some fertility doctors that will implant those. Very rare. Most will not. I know when before we were even in the pro-life world or knew anything about IVF, we actually went to a consultation for IVF, and they said that they will not, and at UCLA I know, will not implant any embryos that have any genetic abnormalities or anything wrong with them. But so then after those are discarded, then they take the good embryos, implant the best ones, and then leave the rest for future use, or they're either frozen indefinitely or discarded.
Frozen. So if size matters, right, which it does, so you basically freeze a human being that is very, very small.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they can stay there for decades.
For hundreds, thousands of years. So there was, there's been embryos that are 30 years old that are born. So imagine being almost 31 when the day that you're born.
So they did fertilization. They froze the
embryo.
In the
90s, they froze these babies.
They waited for 30 years, then they implanted, and the woman gave birth.
Yeah, and this has created a huge, massive market for
frozen the
LGBT couples.
Why?
Well, because they can't conceive, right?
You
need a man and a woman in order to make a baby. And so
you mean by the IVF? I was thinking about the freezing the embryos.
They will get a surrogate woman to carry the baby if it's a male couple, or they'll get a sperm donor if it's a female couple, and they will take one of their eggs, fertilize it, implant it in the lesbian couple, and they'll have a baby that way. Or gay couples will have an egg donor, and I don't know if it's a Russian roulette or whatever they do. Just I don't know if they play Rochambeau of whose sperm gets to fertilize this child, but
how freaking twisted
it's
it
crazy.
is.
Well,
who's the father?
So yeah, exactly. I mean, this is how sick and demented this industry has become. And could it be redeemed? Maybe. Can you I mean, so the question is now, can you implant one at a time? Is that okay? Yeah, but it's like you have a whole industry that kills 90% of the human beings it creates.
93 to be specific.
Yeah.
So you take a couple, a woman and a man, right?
Yeah.
They can get pregnant. So they take man's sperm and her egg, and they fertilize it.
Yes.
But why can't they fertilize in a lab, but they can get pregnant naturally by having sex?
Yeah, so there's a whole host of issues. Like for me, I had cancer when I was 17 and had a lot of chemotherapy. So I have sperm, but it's not, the swimmers aren't swimming too well, the motility. So the sperm needs to get up through the fallopian tube up to where it can be, where the egg resides, and it needs to
go through.
Yeah, be fertilized, right? So the sperm has to swim up there to where, and then the embryo comes down and implants itself into the uterine wall. So for me, it's a matter of utility. Some men have low sperm counts. Some women have things like PCOS. There's a whole host of issues that can arise why fertility rates, and there's other environmental factors for
But
that.
through IVF, you could have a kid.
Yes.
They take a lot of sperm. What do they do?
So you basically I mean, not to be graphic here, but you masturbate into a cup, and then that sperm is frozen until they can thaw it out and do a.
They just repeat the process.
Yeah, exactly.
You just can't have so much sex, but you can have this process repeated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So then they'll go up into the woman, take an egg, take some eggs out, and then fertilize those eggs, and then they implant it back into the woman's.
But there are times when, for
cervix and
instance, if a man is fertile but the woman is not fertile, so they take a man's sperm and another woman's egg, and then they implant it to to a woman, to a couple's.
Yeah, or so like another thing that's very common is just this whole thing of surrogacy. So this is the other crazy thing. Follow. So rich, entitled women who don't want to go through the process of labor, that don't want to become pregnant, they rent a womb for their child. So they will pay a fertility doctor to create, they'll take their embryos and take his sperm. They'll create these embryos, or take her eggs and his sperm, create embryos, and then they'll pay a surrogate to implant those into her cervix.
Excuse me, front hole?
Yeah. Into her uterus. And then she will carry the child to term, and they'll pay her something like $30,000, to do so. They rent a womb. Yeah.
So it's going for a few decades now?
So, dude, this is even crazier. So one woman called our organization, called me actually, and said, AJ, hey, I've been following you online. I love your work. I have a problem though. I agreed to become a surrogate for a gay couple. But the problem was this couple found out I'm 6 months pregnant, and this couple that paid me to carry their baby found out that the baby has club feet.
What is that?
It's just basically the feet are misshapen. Mm-hmm. It's something that's totally correctable, but they found out the baby has club feet, and they wanted her to abort the baby. So
what do I do?
So she's like, what do I do? Can you help me? And we told her, you can't abort that baby. Like, no. She's like, I don't want to abort this baby. I it's totally against everything I do. But the question is, right?
Fucking so
now
it's not her baby.
Think about this. The abortion industry, what do they always say? My body, my choice?
Yes.
Except when you implant your DNA into someone and you want that baby dead, right? It's not her body, her choice anymore. So many women have been forced to abort. Thankfully, we got a lawyer and we're able to get enough pressure on this couple to back off, and the baby was born.
That was her egg?
No. She was just a random woman who was implanted.
So she gave a birth to not her child
Yes.
at all.
Yeah.
Zero genetics, zero hers DNA.
Yeah. This is surrogacy. This is modern surrogacy. So rich couples, celebrity couples.
And she raises
They
the
don't want
child.
to put their body through all of that. They don't want their, vaginas to be messed up. These are the entitled. I mean, this is why people do this, really. Like these disgusting feminist, celebrity, like pregnancy and babies are icky. Pregnancy is disgusting. Motherhood. This is the perspective.
How do they know if they have never
right?
gave birth?
They want to keep a tight cervix, or not cervix, but a tight, vagina.
At the same time, they're promiscuous as hell.
Yeah.
And
so
she's raising the baby.
Yeah. So no. She handed the baby back.
Oh, she handed it.
She just got paid to have the baby.
But they wanted to get it aborted.
Yeah.
But they still want to raise the baby.
Yeah. So they just had to deal with the baby with club feet instead of killing. Could you imagine being that child?
Yes. And they listened to this podcast 10 years later.
My parents, oh wow. My parents found out, they figured out something was wrong with my feet. And at a viable time, I was 21 weeks on, I was viable 6 months in the womb. And they wanted me dead, but because they couldn't kill me legally, I'm here. And suddenly I'm loved and valued now.
Do you think there is a special place in hell for those kind of people?
Man, I think our entire world is just completely morally in just a really bad shape, man.
Do you think we're worse now than we were, I want to say, 1,000 years ago? Morally.
Oh, 1,000 years ago, for sure. I mean, that was the height of the, like the medieval kind. That was the biggest time of moral progress ever.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, like think about that. Like that's, just before Thomas Aquinas, you had, the medieval kind of time of, that was from Constantine to that whole period of
the Dark
churches.
Ages.
Yeah. Well, it's called the Dark Ages, but it's not. I mean, when you actually, that was so I recommend a guy named R.J. Rushdoony on this topic, but he goes through those ages and
R.J. Rush?
R.J. Rushdoony.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about Middle Ages. That's what Thomas Aquinas was putting all of his tomes out on Summa Theologica and all of these, talk about bioethics. That's the time where all of this was being developed. Western thought. This is some of the foundations of Western civilization was all built during this whole time period.
But they were wars for centuries, like French and England's century-lasting war.
Yeah. Oh, like you mean after? Well,
at that time, they were killing.
Yeah. No, there was war for sure
all the time.
But yeah, that was all of human history, right? Until during that time was philosophers that were really understanding all of the concepts of what would later be post-Enlightenment kind of dogmas that we just take for granted, human rights and dignity, Aquinas, and all of these proto kind of theologians that were emerging.
What about other cultures? So let's take, for instance, Native Americans.
Yeah.
What is their stance on abortions and IVFs?
Yeah, so there's a great book on this called The Third Time Around by George Grant again. He traces the history of child sacrifice going back thousands and thousands of years. So we think, they killed their babies outside the womb. Actually, no. They killed their babies inside the womb. And I actually have a quote here somewhere on my computer. Let me see if I can find it. By George Grant in Third Time Around. He traces the history of child sacrifice because we often think, they sacrificed their newborn babies. Mm-hmm. But he says this: virtually every culture in antiquity was stained with the blood of innocent children. Greeks often gave their pregnant women harsh doses of herbal or medicinal abortifacients. Persians developed highly sophisticated surgical curette procedures. The DNC, dilation, and curette procedures was originally invented by the Persians. Chinese women tied heavy ropes around their waists so excruciatingly tight that they either aborted or passed into unconsciousness. Ancient Hindus and Arabs concocted chemical pessaries, which were abortifacients, that were directly pushed or pumped into the womb through the birth canal. Polynesians subjected their pregnant women to onerous tortures until they aborted. Their abdomens were beaten with large stones or hot coals heaped upon them. Japanese women straddled boiling cauldrons of parasital brews. Egyptians disposed of their unwanted children by disemboweling and dismembering them shortly after birth, and their collagen was then ritually harvested for the manufacture of cosmetic creams. None of the great minds of the ancient world, from Plato and Aristotle, to Seneca, to Quintilian, to Pythagoras and Aristophanes, to Livy and Cicero, from Herodotus to Thucydides, to Plutarch to Euripides, none of them disparaged child killing in any way. In fact, most of them actually recommended it. They casually discussed its various methods and procedures. They casually debated its sundry legal ramifications. They blithely tossed lives like dice.
Why? That's just a ritual. How can you convince a woman to do this shit to your kid?
Because they don't have Christ. The answer to that question is because human life is utterly disposable if it doesn't have objective, transcendent value. If your understanding is that we are just matter, that we're a collection of random molecules in this unguided, total chaos of confusion and time and chance acting on matter. Mm-hmm. If there's no transcendent moral law from which you can derive dignity and rights, then why wouldn't you? So, I mean, if there is no God, then we are just matter in motion.
Do you think those women back then loved their children?
Well, I think, yes, but I think back then they all sacrificed their children to pagan deities, right? So this was all a matter of child sacrifice, you know. So there's been ancient ruins in Tunisia, which is which was the Carthage, modern day. Back then it was Carthage. The Carthaginians,
yes.
Carthaginians came down from North Africa,
yes.
and settled in Tunisia, and so they found in these ruins just mass little, what they called tophets, of just aborted babies, that they had just aborted babies, sacrificed children that they had sacrificed to their gods. And so who is it? Plato? No, I'm sorry. It was, goodness gracious, what was his name? I think I'm blanking on the name of the
philosopher,
but it was actually a historian of the time. I'm blanking on his name, but anyway, he talks about the city of Carthage and how they would sacrifice their babies, and it says that they had the local demon, or the local entity was Baal, right? So they would sacrifice, they would heat up a large fires, and they would throw their babies onto the molten altar of Baal, and it says that they would beat the drums really, really loudly, and they would sing and scream to drown out the screams of the children.
But is it verified by historians, or is it just like kind of a myth?
I can find the quote for you. It's I believe it was from.
Did you learn that at school? Why don't they teach this shit at school?
I had to read this just through, like that book, like I said. That book talks about it. But this is in the ancient historians. Let me see. Plutarch says, with full understanding and knowledge, they themselves offered up their own children. And those who had no children would buy little ones from poor people, and they would cut their throats as if they were lambs or young birds. Meanwhile, the mother stood without a tear or a moan. But should she utter a single moan or let fall a single tear, she had to forfeit the money, and her child was sacrificed nonetheless. And the whole area before the statue was filled with a loud noise of flutes and drums, so that they should not reach the cries of the wailing should not reach the ears of the people.
What century is that?
Plutarch. I think that was 200 BC. Let me look up the dates of Plutarch.
When the first 5 books of Bible were written?
Of the Old Testament or New Testament?
Old Testament, of course.
Oh, well, that would have been Moses. That would have been about 1,000 years before Christ.
1,000 only. Okay, so that's even before Torah.
Well, that was the Torah, Genesis, Exodus.
Yeah, but
I mean
the sacrifice that they did that was before Torah was written. Because in Torah you've got all the laws and rules.
Well, this is about 119 AD, I guess, is 46 to 119 AD. It was around roughly the dates of Plutarch. So this is just before Christ.
So you want to tell me that back then people were
AD, sorry, just after Christ. Sorry about that.
After?
Just after Christ is when he was AD 46 to AD 119 was Plutarch's dates.
They were just non-believers. That's it. That's the only reason. Well, how can they do that?
Yeah, and so this is, you ask the question, how could they do this, and why was abortion and child sacrifice such a staple in all of antiquity? Mm-hmm. Well, because we think in Christian terms, right? But Christianity didn't really conquer the Roman Empire until the 4th century. And so, it was Saint Basil. Saint Basil the Great was the one who ended abortion in the Roman Empire. He had a very prestigious line. Actually, some people think that he was on the Rothschild dynasty. It was Saint Basil, but he was the patriarch of his region, and he used his power and influence and literally toppled the high places of child sacrifice around Rome, where they would either expose their infants and let them die, or they would sacrifice their infants. And he used his authority and religious, his political friends and influence to end child sacrifice in the Roman Empire. I think that was around the third or 4th century.
He was influenced by Christianity.
Oh, he was a bishop.
Okay, so let's take 100 people, right? 50 of them were influenced or being approached by Christians, like, this is Jesus Christ, follow him, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and etc. At the same time, others are being influenced by what? Because there wasn't even now, it's not even a religion, Satanism, right? There is a book, but that was a book written 100 years ago by this lunatic.
Yeah,
what did they?
I actually have a whole sermon on this. It's called the seed of the woman and the bride, the seed of the woman and the church. But Christ comes on the scene and gives dignity to the human nature. And the reason why Christianity has always birthed liberty and freedom is because we have
progress and beauty.
Yeah, we have everything. A moral foundation for human rights. So ultimately, the greatest argument against child sacrifice and abortion is that the God of the universe entered every single stage of human development, right? The reason why embryos are valuable ultimately is because God himself became an embryo. God himself became a toddler, a fetus, an infant, and so there was never at any moment of Christ's existence where he was a human being, but not the second person of the Trinity. And so Christ forever dignified and exalted the value of human nature and the human experience and human matter, because he himself wears our nature to this day.
Yeah, but AJ, I'm 36 years old. 34 years I've been an atheist. My parents were never religious. They never went to church, etc. But they gave me those values that you can't kill even animals.
Yeah.
You can't just take and kill even flowers because they're beautiful. They have to grow. You have to enjoy them by looking at them. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's not the values of Christianity that I was taught to not to kill others.
Well, it's I would argue though it's hundreds of years of those values
and
being
unintentionally
implemented into the modern collective understanding, philosophical understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not it goes to show you, why was the 20th century, the bloodiest century of human history? It's because the first time ever we had this atheistic kind of experiment in secular humanism. Mao, Stalin, Hitler.
Before that, Lenin. Revolution.
They all despised Christianity. They all absolutely, militantly hated Christ. I mean, Mao in China, like, it's so funny because we see Christianity as this subversive force in the West. It's like, oh man, you're like trying to keep everybody down and repress them, right?
People
but everywhere, totally. You moral do-gooders, like you're always trying to tell me other people what to do with their body. You're trying to limit their freedom and autonomy. All the other world sees Christianity as the liberating force, that gives unbridled freedom to the individual. So much so that every totalitarian communist regime or, Marxist, communist regime, socialist regime has done everything in their power to prevent the spread of Christianity because it gives value, dignity, and human freedom to the individual rather than the collective.
Since I became a Christian, so I'm on the journey, right? This journey is very long. I want to say lifelong journey. I started to question every issue that I see in the world. I started questioning those issues in terms of Christianity. Could Christianity solve this problem? And for 2 years, I couldn't find any issue that Christianity wouldn't solve. It's impossible. When you see, for instance, domestic violence, right? God cheated on his wife, wife cheated on the husband, he or she shot him or shot her, right? So in the first place, they did adultery. If they were true believers and they were truly believing in Christ, they wouldn't do adultery. So the shit wouldn't happen.
Absolutely.
Or the kids are not now being raised in foster homes because mom killed the dad or dad killed the mom and he's now in prison. And so
in the first place, parents right now, and the parents of our child that we have in our home, she's 2 months old, are meth heads. I mean, it's like, there you go. They're just doing drugs because they don't have a moral foundation.
What law out of 10 does forbid for you to be a drug addict, for instance? What would you say?
A drug addict, I would say, that's an interesting question. I wouldn't, let me think. I wouldn't say the 10 Commandments specifically limit that, but I would say more of a understanding of the dignity of the human person, right? Don't get drunk, right? So it's not just the 10 Commandments, but there's other laws that Christ said, right? Don't be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Holy Spirit. So I don't know specifically the 10 Commandments would apply to that. But like adultery, right, would be one of them. So I can't cheat on my wife, but specifically, it's not lying, it's not stealing, it's not. So I don't think one of the 10 Commandments would.
Would you say that ayahuasca is a heresy?
No, because ayahuasca is a substance. Heresies are more have no metaphysical kind of basis. A heresy is something that you believe, right? It's an idea, not a physical substance.
Astrology.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I would say ayahuasca is part of a system of paganism.
Because they call for the spirits?
Well, you're opening your brain up to other dimensions.
Altering the mind.
Where you can interact with entities. And it's what's crazy about ayahuasca is everybody says, if this is just your biochemical brain firing, then it'd be random. It would be just this crazy random sequence of craziness. But everybody reports that they witness and interact with the same entities. that they can describe these entities in vivid detail that they meet.
Do you think they're evil?
Oh, I think for sure that they are demons.
So ayahuasca gives you this DMT, right? So your body produces DMT twice in your lifetime, when you're being born and when you die, right? So there's a reason why God put it in us, just for us to experience it only twice per our lifetime. So remember ayahuasca, the first time I heard about it, I want to say that was 2016, and it was getting more and more popular in the world. A few podcasts talked about it, and the DMT stuff came out. And I had a few podcast guests back in Lithuania when I was doing podcasts in my home country, and they were telling me those incredible stories. I did ayahuasca, I was lost, and etc. I went to Peru, I did ayahuasca over there. Then a few years later, or a year later, another guy came in and he said, well, I did ayahuasca here in Lithuania. We invited a shaman from Peru. He flew in, and we got this group of 10. We all sit in the forest at night. We puked, vomited, etc. And we reached the nirvana, right? And they were always saying me this: you should do that. Like, recommend, you should do that. And I was like, well, that's a great recommendation. Maybe I'm gonna wait. So now I can't find any information about ayahuasca. I believe that's the trend that is gone.
You can't find. Oh, really?
No one's talking about it. When was the last time you heard someone is doing
last
ayahuasca?
Time I heard
something great.
Someone talk about it was Jordan Peterson.
He did this stuff?
Oh no, he didn't do it. He talked about from a psychological perspective, like some of the clinical data on it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's done or what. But I don't dabble in a lot of that because it has pagan roots. I mean, all of it. These are shamans. These are pagan, and they can play the drums and play specific music in such frequencies to make the entities dance and all this stuff. And so it's not to be trifled with, and remember, Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. And so one of the things that a lot of people say is like, oh, we all need to go back into the one, that we're all the same, that all the religions are one and the same. And that, there's another book I would recommend. It's called One or Two, or Oneism or Twoism. It's by a guy named Dr. Peter Jones. And he really did a work on paganism before paganism started really manifesting itself into the culture outside of this. We're now in a post-Christian world. And it's kind of funny because people went from Christian to this post-Christian era where people went from Christian to atheism and now to like the spiritism, right?
New
agey kind of pagan spirituality, because they're we're realizing that atheism is irrational and illogical, and we really are spiritual beings. And so people even like Joe Rogan, right? You listen to his stuff now. It doesn't seem like he's an atheist. He sounds like he's more of an agnostic. He doesn't really know what's out there, but he's open to the spirit realm, and he's dabbling with all of these psychedelics to try to understand what this spiritual aspect of who he is. But Peter Jones breaks down all of the religions of the world into two categories: oneism or twoism. So all of the religions of the world that are not Abrahamic religions based on the Bible are oneistic. And what he means by oneistic is that there's nothing outside of the created realm. So all of human existence, Buddhism, paganism, shamanism, Hinduism, all of these worlds that aren't the big four: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and
I believe that's it.
Yeah, the big three. Sorry, the big three are all the ones that aren't Abrahamic religions. Are all have at their foundation this understanding that there's nothing outside of the created realm, and that matter gives rise to everything that we experience. And even the gods that they were once, human beings, or even their gods were this cyclical. This instead of linear, it's very cyclical, right? This reincarnation, all this, and so this dualistic kind of what's called Gnosticism is pagan spirituality. And so you have to rid yourself of the earthly realm to reach enlightenment or reach the next form of the highest form of human experience, I guess.
Basically, you want to become a god.
Yeah, in that sense, right? There's not our understanding of God, because our understanding of God is actually dual, like a twoist system. And what I mean by that is God is outside space and time in the created realm.
All the creation, yes.
He never had a beginning. Everything that's not God is created and has a beginning. He is this creator and sustainer of everything. So what gives us ultimate dignity and worth is the fact that we as human beings are created in the image of God, and we reflect his moral majesty and objective rights and values in philosophical kind of objectivity. And so if you don't have that, you're in this onist system where everything is just matter. Everything is just blah. It's just created. And so if all we are is just a highly evolutionary collection of protons, neutrons, and electrons, then what's wrong with rape? What's wrong with murder? It's just matter bumping into matter in a certain way. And this is why Christianity ultimately is the only thing that's given objective human rights to the individual.
I like how the spirituality in most cases lead women just to promiscuity. Most of them, but they are very spiritual, they're just promiscuous as hell.
Well, and the reason for that is because if your understanding of the body is, it's bad, it's evil, it's
disposable.
It's disposable, right? And you hear this all the time with pagan spiritualities. You can tell them because you'll hear things like, you are not your body, you're a soul trapped in your body, right? That's not the Christian worldview. The Christian worldview is that your body is so valuable that before you go into heaven or before you have an eternity on a glorified earth, your body itself is going to be resurrected to meet your spirit and either judged and thrown into hell for all eternity, or is going to be with God in a glorified, universe without sin and death. And but the body is this thing that, and you're seeing this with all of the world's systems, by the way. Like, what are the things that we're experiencing now? Transgenderism, homosexuality, abortion. Think philosophically, that dualistic kind of understanding of the body, right? So that your spirit, your soul, your consciousness, that's the real you. Your body is just this disposable thing that isn't really you. And so transgenderism, right? Your chromosomes aren't the real you. Your matter isn't the real you. The real you is whatever you decide it is. There's 86,000 different genders, right?
If you don't like your body part, you can chop it off.
Yes, exactly. Because your body part is this malleable thing that has to be manipulated in order to reflect the real you, and it's ever changing. Homosexuality, gestures, the biological makeup of, the parts, or whether they can actually reproduce a child, is inconsequential to your real identity. It's whoever you're born as is reflected as your own desires. It's esoteric. It's abortion. Last one. What you are biologically, the unborn are human beings, but they're not persons. Because in order to be a human person, you have to be conscious, right? Same thing.
So if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, and that God created your body just like he intended to do, you don't like some kind of your body parts, you can chop it off, you can turn your penis into a vagina. They do that. You can get the silicone, right? You get those lips, eyes, nose, breasts, everything. You get even this stuff. That's a sign. That's a test. So going further, right? I did this stuff more than 15 years ago now. I wouldn't do that now because God created my body just like He intended to do. I didn't like some part of it.
Yeah.
That's why I did the hands, the back, the shoulders, everything. I just didn't like my body. I thought that I'm the creator. I can adjust it. I can make it better.
Yeah.
Which is not true.
Yeah.
And every girl that does the silicone breasts or implants in her ass or in the lips, and that's not, you're not creating a beauty.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just twisting it,
Yeah.
and it's twisted. Every time I see, especially Russians love this stuff. I don't know why, but if a Russian girl has sugar daddy, even it's here in the U.S., in Russia, in other European countries, you can see it right away that she's going to have those big lips, these breasts, implants, and etc. But it's not getting you more prettier.
Yeah.
The more natural you are, the more beauty you see. That God created you like this, man. You're a masterpiece. Like you're that beautiful.
Yeah. So like to bring this conversation back to the original question is like, why does paganism? Why is it always the sacrifice of babies?
Yeah, but who was whispering in their ears?
Exactly.
Where did they get this information to do that?
So I answer this question by going back to the very beginning in the book of Genesis, when God created man. So God created man as the jewel of his creation. I mean, everything that exists is beautiful, but then he created one specific being in which he gave certain abilities to understand in him and perceive him and be able to communicate and have a relationship with him. And so what it means to be made in God's image is something that atheists or anybody that doesn't believe can't have a concept of, because, no lizard looks at a star or a sunset and goes, wow, it doesn't have that ability. Like the created animal kingdom doesn't have the functions and the capabilities that we have: beauty, goodness. I mean, a pack of wolves will destroy another pack of wolves, feel absolutely no remorse over it, right? We have this moral nature of treating each other with equality and dignity, beauty, truth, goodness, truth. This understanding of this non-material laws of logic that you can't taste, you can't touch, that everything I'm saying right now and everything these listeners are hearing, they're judging whether everything I say abides by these immaterial laws that you can't taste, you can't put them in a microscope. Where do they don't, every culture has to abide by them, right? But have no real metaphysical or no physical ontology. And so God created this creature in which he could have that relationship and be like him and communicate with him. And he created that as man, and he created another class of cognizant people called angels. And Satan is this glorified angel that fell from heaven, tries to assault the throne of God, and it's understood that he tries to become God. And then the lie in the garden is that you can be like God, creating basically your own identity in the world in your own image, and assaulting the throne of God. You'll be like God, knowing good from evil. So you either have God in his world, or you have Satan, and his agenda is to destroy the image of God. And he hates God. He hates anything that reflects his moral majesty or anything he loves and cares about. And so the chief, most precious jewel of God is innocence of children. When you go to church, the most heavily guarded area, or you go to the schools, right? What's the most heavily guarded area is where children are.
Schools?
Right.
That's a bad example. It should be.
Right. It should be. But because they're innocents, and because Jesus says that the children of heaven, or the children reflect the kingdom of heaven, and so it belongs to children. And so Satan is, and every manifestation or iteration of pagan spirituality is dead set against children. And that's ultimately why, because Satan hates the image of God and wants to kill it.
Why did God create a woman?
Well, to reflect his moral majesty and to help man.
Yeah, but wasn't Adam bored?
Wasn't he bored? Yeah. Well, I don't know if he was bored. So it says
he was sad, right?
Well, no, it says that it wasn't good for Adam to be alone.
Yes.
That he needed a helper suitable for him.
Yeah, but let's take a look on the intention of God. So he created the world, everything, like, right? Animals, plants, everything. Then he created a man, a male. That was his intention, to create just a male. What did he want him to do if he was alone? Because he was intended to be alone. Then God noticed that he is sad.
Exactly.
He's not happy.
For
then
man to be alone. Yeah.
And only then humanity could procreate.
Exactly. Yep. And then he gives this dominion mandate, like to take dominion over the earth and to be fruitful and multiply, to fill the earth with worshipers of Christ.
Because before Eve, Adam would live forever in a beautiful world.
Provided that he ate of the tree of the good tree, not the knowledge of good and evil, right? The tree of life, right? So if man could eat from the tree of life, he could live forever, which I think is a type of Christ, a prefiguring of Christ, like that Christ dies on this tree, and we taste of the fruit of Christ's work on the cross, and we live forever. There's this parallel in Romans chapter 5 about the two Adams. The one Adam gives birth to all of mankind, but he fails and he plunges a whole human race into death and sin. The second Adam, through his work, he's rebuilding humanity, and through union with him on the cross, if we put our faith in him, there's this great exchange where in a sense, the guilt of us fall upon him, and he bears our iniquity, and we receive his atoning work, and our righteousness is from him, and humanity is being rebuilt in this image of the second Adam. So what Adam couldn't do on the cross, and what he should have done in crushing the head of the serpent, Christ did by defeating sin and death on the cross. At least I was done with my statement. Yeah,
at least that. Let's imagine, right? Let's imagine we have a time machine. What would you change in the history of humanity, not just in your own life, but in the history of humanity? Would you change anything?
No, I don't think so.
How about we go at this event when Eve takes the apple?
Yeah.
And we just smack her hand.
So the crazy thing about this is, like,
but do you understand?
God could have stopped that, right? Like, God could have stopped that. It's not like he was as surprised to him that this was going to happen.
Yeah, but if he would do that, Jesus wouldn't be born.
Exactly.
Nothing. No Christianity.
Yeah.
No Islam. No Judaism. Like nothing.
Yep.
That would be a whole another, just like a multiverse, right?
Totally. Yeah, and so it's this kind of question of evil, like, what is that called? Theodicy, the problem of evil, I think is what it's called. But how do you think through this, right? Because God could have stopped evil, but he chose not to. And in some way, he's allowed suffering and death and, like, horrible atrocities, and we don't know all the aspects of how that interplays with free will and all that, right? I'm going to leave that to the smarter people than I am. But God, being so wise, decides to allow these things because the end, he glorifies himself, and he gives, in some way, it's all going to be worth it. And I don't understand that.
So every time people ask me, so you're a Christian now, how do you process, for instance, Holocaust, or how you process world wars, and etc., or all those horrendous atrocities that happen in the world with pedophiles and etc. And to myself, I I got an answer for this. So I am a father, right? I have a kid. So I watch my kid playing outside, and I see that he can hurt himself by doing that. But at some point, I'm not gonna tell him a single word, just for him to experience the fall, experience the failure of him doing something. So people then tell me, but those are people's lives, right? The Holocaust, for instance, or the World War II, the Stalin, Mao, Lenin, Hitler, etc. Yeah, but if you think that your mind is just like the gods, you will never understand God. God thinks in multidimensional. He thinks in way other ways than us. He sees all the humanity, all the history, not like us for thousands of years. Maybe for him it's just like a second, and he sees this not maybe as evil, but just as a lesson for the humanity. Of course, 20 million were died, 6 million Jews were killed, and said that's horrendous. But for the whole humanity at all, for thousands of years, they're just timestamp, nothing else.
Yeah, and so it's weird. How I answer this is, and that's good, but how I answer this is like a little different, because sometimes we want to give an answer rather than actually just challenge the question. Like, okay, if there is no God, where do you get this moral indignation to call anything he does good or evil to begin with?
So a few years ago, I would say, if there is God, why does not he stop pedophiles from doing those horrendous acts?
Yeah, so then I would say, okay, well, if the question we shouldn't be asking necessarily is why does evil happen, or why do tragedy happens? The question we should be asking is, why doesn't it happen all the time? Like, why do we experience anything good at all if there is no God? So even this concept of good to begin with, I think, you're trying to put it back at God, but from an atheist perspective, if there is no God, where are you getting the concept of good to begin with in order to judge him with? Because if there's no God, it's not good, it's not evil. It's just what happens. Right. So like if I take, give me an example. If I take a Mountain Dew and I shake it up, and I take a Dr. Pepper and I shake it up, and I
open the lids,
open both lids. If I asked you which one of these is good, you would say that's a nonsensical question. It's a biochemical reaction. It's not good or bad. So, but for some reason, we could think of a world where all there is as the guiding principle is just matter in motion.
So you want to tell me the ancient people sacrificing kids, they weren't thinking that's
just the highest good of society. They did that in order for their crops to grow. They did that so that they could have a future posterity, wealth and human flourishing, and bountiful harvest.
That was the game. No, the rules of the game. You want to have a good crop, you have to sacrifice a child. It's not good or bad. It's just an act.
Well, and get this, bro. We do the same thing today. Why does a woman go to Planned Parenthood? She wants to go to college. She wants a better future.
Yes.
She wants financial prosperity. I have to offer my child on the altar of my college degree. I have to these actresses. Without abortion, I would have never been able to get this little freaking flimsy ass trophy. As if this stupid little freaking piece of metal.
And they're so happy.
They're
snorting the coke 24/7. They're so happy.
Is more important than they slaughtered 3 of their children in order to achieve that.
But I have another question. I have a question to fathers. Why do they give up their child so easily? Like, it's a woman's choice. Bro, it's 50% of you. It's 50% of your DNA. Why do you give up that easily?
Yeah, I know. It's wild, right? Yeah, the statistics show that 87% of women who have abortions are unmarried.
Once again, promiscuity. Yep. Take the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, and guys want to use women sexually without committing to them. And so if you're doing that, if you're just in this for your own orgasmic experience, then yeah, why wouldn't you get rid of it?
Okay, you like sex. Yeah. Sex is great. Everything is okay. Answer me this question: why not to use a condom? Why?
Well, I mean, I know why I don't use a condom, but I'm married. It's
and you're
not,
trying to
it's not pleasurable, right?
Oh, it's pleasurable to go to Planned Parenthood
well,
and
there
kill
you go,
your baby.
Right?
Or to pay alimonies for 18 years now.
Yeah, but that's how people think, right? There's a large percentage of the population, and I remember guys in high school being like, I'm not wearing a condom. It just doesn't feel good. They like literally, but if that's your whole thing is that you just want to have, the best orgasm possible, that's how they think. And people are using abortion as a form of birth control. But again, okay, if what's in the womb isn't a human being, mm-hmm. and it isn't valuable, who cares how many abortions you get, right? Who cares if it's a form of birth control?
No one cares.
No one should. I mean, if what's in the womb isn't a human being, have as many abortions as you want. I don't care.
So because of the alarm, I genuinely forgot what we were talking about. But I believe we almost ended that topic, right?
Sure, yeah.
Let's go to the abortions and the myths and lies that occurred during the debate between Kamala and Trump. So she said that he's about to put a ban on abortion. Do you think he's going to do that?
Oh, there's no way. No.
Because he doesn't want to
realize Trump is not pro-life. And conservatives are going to hear that. Pro-life people are going to hear that and be very surprised by that.
Definition pro-life is at all, no abortions at all.
Well, in my opinion, it's like if I said I'm against slavery, but I thought that a certain amount of people can legally be. If I say I'm against slavery, but I'm like, but the state should decide. Would you call me against slavery?
No. Right?
So it's like, if you can't call yourself pro-life and then say, but the state should be willing to and I'm comfortable with leaving the decision as to who lives and who dies at the state level. It's not pro-life by any of this metric.
Who lives and who dies, you mean the, how's it called?
You can literally, 11 states right now.
No.
No. Abortion. If we're talking about voting the rights of little children away, mm-hmm. that should not be a state decision, right? Now, I'm glad that some states have the ability, and I think everyone has a responsibility to protect unborn children. But let's not kid ourselves and say that this should ultimately be decided at the state level. It's moral insanity. We would never say, we should leave slavery, enslaving people up to the states. But for some reason, every conservative talking head is like, we're comfortable with having us at the states. And that's what the pro-life movement has always wanted. It's like, no, it isn't.
But there are more slaves right now than 200 years ago.
Well, yeah, but not in America.
Not in America.
Yeah. Right. The slaves, most of the slaves are in actually.
Lots of them are just in China.
Yeah, well, China
working
or
at
Muslim countries, right?
Creating our iPhones, assembling them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, fundamental human rights like the right to life should not be decided by popular vote. They're inalienable rights. They're not something that are voted on.
Well, it's not even a right. It's you can't choose whether this person dies or not in the womb. It's only his and God's decision. God's a decision only. A kid cannot decide whether he wants to be born or not. So it's God's decision.
Yeah, no, I guess I mean deciding whether to allow abortion in the law. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's 11 states right now that have put abortion on the ballot for November. I have a master list, but some of the major conservative ones are Florida, Arizona, I believe Montana.
So you want to tell me that when you go to the to the polls, you're going to take the ballot, and on the ballot you're going to see multiple options, right? President of the US, then some local, it depends on the state, and then you're going to choose whether to put abortion or not.
The two most important fights right now are Florida and Arizona. All right, so if we lose there, it's going to be very bad for the pro-life movement.
So they are about either to ban at all or to do what?
Nope. It's a decision, yes or no. Should we enshrine abortion in the Constitution as a state constitution? Like, the states can have their own constitution.
Yes.
The state constitution, do we put it in there, enshrine it as a fundamental right of Floridians or people in Nevada? Do they have a fundamental right to abortion enshrined in the Constitution of that state? There's 11 states right now that have it on the ballot, a constitutional amendment for the right to abortion.
Okay, so for instance, they vote yes. What changes? For instance, in Florida.
Abortion to the day of birth.
It changes immediately?
Yes. No, it changes when I think there's effectively there's a period of time when it goes into effect, and then the Attorney General writes kind of a issuing statement that effectively puts it into law.
Okay, so if yes, up to day of birth. If they vote no, what happens?
The previous laws will remain. So like say there's a 15-week bill.
So
like
it's not getting better. It only can get worse or stay the same.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they will get this written down in the constitution of the state for a woman to do an abortion. What about the father?
No choice, no decision.
How? What about his rights?
The law of the land. It's not according to the law of the land. It's not his right at all. But it is his right. If she has the baby, he has to pay child support.
Yes.
Right? It's not his wallet, his choice. It's not. No, his body is actually conscripted to go out and work under force to pay child support. So his body, his choice is not his.
Okay, so if pro-abortionists say that it's just a clump of cells, it's because it's still in the womb. Let's say just in the womb, right?
Yeah.
But when the child is born and they just leave the child on the table and it dies on his own. That's a child. That's a human being.
Yeah, and there's actually an abortionist that was just recently on a podcast that I saw that was talking about instances in his practice that he's pro-life now, but that he had assisted in literally leaving second trimester children on a table to die that had been aborted during a labor induction. And for whatever reason, it didn't work and they came out alive and they were just left. I mean, this happens all the time. When we uncover those babies in DC, 2 of those 5 babies, the third trimester babies, had evidence that they had been born alive. One was still in a completely undisturbed amniotic sac. Another one was just pristine, perfectly formed child with not a single mark on its body.
So out of 50 states, how many states has banned abortion to this day? Iowa?
So 0. So the abortion pill is legal in all 50 states.
Abortion pill you can take up to how many weeks or days?
Well, it's approved to 10 weeks.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's approved to 10 weeks. Off-label, they're using it even further, and on the black market, people are killing their babies into the second and third trimester.
10 weeks is like what? Like this?
No, 10 weeks is big. So
this is the pill that takes the progesterone out of a child, right? And he dies?
Yeah.
He dies.
So there's in the abortion pill, there's 2 pills. One is called misoprostol. First one is mifepristone, and the second is misoprostol. So mifepristone is a pill that a woman takes, and it starves the growing child of a vital nutrient that they need called progesterone. It's a hormone, and that hormone just nourishes the baby so it can grow. And so they kill the baby by starving it basically of progesterone. And then the second pill is taken like 24 hours later and it expels the baby. Just
you go to a toilet and
she starts contractions and she delivers the baby into a toilet.
10 weeks like this. She
A little less, like probably that big.
Okay, so all the 50 states you can buy those pills up to 10 weeks, in some cases even later terms.
Well, so there's zero laws that criminalize abortion at all. So a woman can go across state lines and get a pill. She can order the pill by mail. In fact, I live in a conservative state. I live in Wisconsin, and up to before recently, Wisconsin was outlawed, quote unquote, from conception. But just to prove this, I actually filmed myself ordering abortion pills to my home address. Arrived completely free within like 3 days.
What's next?
So you can literally film yourself, ordering these pills, post them online, send them, show it to a police officer, and it's completely legal, So, and 63% of babies, actually a recent study came out that showed 630,000 children were killed last year with the abortion pill alone. So about 6% of women who take the pill end up in the ER with an incomplete abortion, needing a surgical
baby
treatment.
just doesn't come out?
Yep, it doesn't come out, or they experience really bad sepsis or hemorrhaging. So they, it's really. So the incomplete abortion, this woman who recently died in the news.
I haven't heard of the news.
Yeah, so there's a Georgian woman who they're saying died because of Roe v. Wade being overturned. And their decision
killed her?
Well, they're saying that she couldn't get a D&E, which is a dilation couldn't get a D&C, which is a dilation curettage. She should, and they're saying because the D&C is an abortion procedure, she couldn't get miscarriage management because abortion was outlawed. So a D&C was outlawed. This is what they present. And you actually look into it, it's completely wrong. She went to a neighboring state, got abortion pills, and started bleeding and going into sepsis. And then it was literally the abortion pill that caused this. She had an incomplete abortion, and she ended up dying from that abortion on the operating table because they didn't perform the D&C in time. But the D&C is completely legal. Miscarriage management is not against the law. Ectopic pregnancy care, not against the law. There's like if you are in a life-saving, you don't have to wait till you're dying to get in any state. This is all propaganda, and the propaganda machine of the abortion industry is very, very strong, and they're just lying to women, gaslighting women, and telling them that they're going to die without abortion. It's just simply a bold-faced, evil lie, and everyone's believing it.
And sepsis is a blood contamination?
Yes.
How did she got her blood contaminated with the pill?
That's a good question. So women are getting sepsis, and they're not sure whether it's. Some people had this theory that some of the pills were coming from India, and they weren't. I gotcha. They weren't handling them correctly. But sepsis is something that is experienced with a good percentage of women will end up. And if you read the black box warning on mifepristone, it says that is a risk is severe bleeding. Because it also, it kills a child, but then mifepristone is flushing the uterine lining, and so all of that.
So this is the accident that Kamala was referring to, saying that women are bleeding and dying because
yes,
Roe v. Wade?
Exactly. Yeah, they used this huge propaganda lie to spread the lie that women are dying because of pro-life laws, and it's just a freaking bold-faced lie. And there's the propaganda machine of all of these journalists, like people from the Atlantic and Miss Magazine, and
My favorite.
you know, like they're just totally lying. Jezebel magazine, like all these magazines are just the writers are just outright lying and spreading lies of the abortion industrial complex.
There's a magazine called Jezebel.
Yeah, I've been featured in there a couple times.
You're kidding me.
No, for my
Jezebel?
pro-life work. Yeah. Yep.
There's the one for males, Satan.
No, like Jezebel, like the Jezebel magazine is like it's just a feminist magazine.
Why is it called like this?
Because, dude, that's
they like the
patron saint is Jezebel, man. That's who they want to model themselves after. Yeah, it's demonic, man. I thought we established this. They don't lie. They put everything right out there in the open. Everything is right out there. I mean, the Church of Satan or the Satanic Temple
is that a joke?
No, they have a legitimate abortion clinic. There's an abortion clinic in New Mexico that is started by the Satanic Temple.
So Trump during the debate said that in some states you can go and do abortion up to date of birth.
Yes.
Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
They fact checked him and told that that's
I
not
know
true.
It's true. You can like literally stop this video if you're listening to it and just type in Warren Hearn, like I said before. Warren Hearn
Colorado?
in Colorado. Yeah, I mean they openly, or the DuPont Clinic. Arizona. Oregon is another New York. Washington, D.C., there's no gestational limits on abortion there. New Mexico, there's no gestational limits on abortion.
What does it mean?
What?
No, how do you say no?
No gestational limits.
Yeah.
So like a gestation is just the
no
number
terms?
of weeks in the pregnancy, like, right? So first trimester, second trimester, third gestational trimester.
Why did they fact check him then? They lied.
Oh yeah, no, they lie. Yeah, they just lie and repeat propaganda, and everybody covers for them.
So the strictest state that has abortion laws are what? Iowa?
No, probably like Texas or Oklahoma, maybe.
Texas and Oklahoma are only with the exemptions, like the rape.
Yeah,
or
so like
incest?
it's outlawed from technically, from conception. You can't get a surgical abortion, but you can get an abortion pill, via mail, or you can. It's not illegal to take it; it's illegal to buy it there.
Is it illegal to take drugs, or just illegal to
buy?
buy?
No, it's illegal to take drugs in
illegal.
Texas. Yeah.
Not
you
only
can't
buy.
smoke weed. Weed's not legal. Heroin or anything like that, but you can use the mail system to buy abortion pills.
Do you think that's true or not, that the abortion issue will be the result of the elections? Who wins? And why so, if that's true, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, like I was kind of saying before, we've had 50 years of just bloodshed, like 50 years of women. And I think a lot of women in America are somewhat coerced by their own past decisions to remain in a state that they're in. And what I mean by that is like this, like,
I did it, and I don't want it to stop.
Well, it's funny, and I don't want to use this example. I want to be careful, but there's a thing about human nature that you end up trying to justify the decisions that you make rather than face them, right? So it was said in the Holocaust that the Nazis first killed the Jews because they hated them, but then they ended up hating the Jews because they killed them. And so you end up trying to justify things rather than face the reality. And so if you're faced with two options, like one option is to be pro-life, and the other option is to remain where you're at, it's a very hard thing to admit that you've killed your child. And so that type of breakthrough is really hard for women. So I think they were saying like about a third of women have had abortions. And so you have a whole host of...
In their lifetime, you mean?
Yeah.
Every third?
Mm-hmm. About a third of women are post-abortive. So how many women out there who have this secret and this guilt, it's so much easier to double or triple down when the only other option is admitting this horrible, horrible reality that you have to come to terms with, that you murdered your own child. And so that alone just kind of in a whole host of, whether it be the media, whether it be colleges, whether it be a feminist agenda, it's really convinced women that abortion is their birthright and that it's somehow connected to their own freedom and empowerment, that they can't fully be a human being and as a woman. They can't fully achieve their potential without abortion rights. Yeah, I mean, this is what they believe. And it's a very alluring thing. I mean, it's wild to me because you would think that the easiest thing in the world would be the hardest thing in the world would be trying to tell somebody that it's okay to kill a human being, especially a baby. But they've managed to pull it off. Mm-hmm. They gaslight everyone to where I'm the crazy one for thinking that viable second and third trimester babies are babies.
Well, actually, the easiest thing in the world is just to put a condom on your dick.
Yeah.
It's so easy. It's like $2, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, I mean, it's even things like viability or things are silly, like arguments. Well, I can't live outside of the womb. Well, okay. Well, you can't. That's just you can't live on Mars. So that's an environment that you weren't designed to be in. Mm-hmm. So every single human is viable in the area that is in the environment that it's designed to be in
at the specific time of
your
life.
So a first trimester child is viable in the environment it was designed to be in. If you put it in an environment it's not designed to be in, it's not going to be viable anymore. Just like if I put you a mile in the bottom of the ocean.
You know what's frightening to me is when I hear those, I watch a few discussions on the internet, how they discuss pro-life, pro-abortions, pro-choice, etc. And once the opposite side asks the question, what about you if your mom decided to do an abortion 30 years ago or 20 years ago? And they always tell, so what?
Yeah.
They don't care about their own life.
Totally.
They hate it.
Yeah, it's just very, not only antinatalist perspective, but it's a very much a negative view on human life.
Yes.
In general, just your own life. It's life
miserable.
in general. People are miserable and they hate life, and but policy, government solutions can't solve that. That's a human heart and
that's a disease. That's a moral disease.
Yeah, it's a moral
Shut
disease.
up. You live in America.
Exactly.
The greatest country. You have everything, right?
Well, and people like you understand that because you weren't born here. You came from a place of.
Yeah, but Lithuania is nothing like Africa, for instance,
yeah.
or other countries that are bad.
But
and people love their lives over there.
Totally.
They will never end their lives. And this spoiled brat, he or she, so what? If my mom did an abortion 20 years ago, I wouldn't be alive. So what? My life is miserable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Get the shut up.
Yep.
That's nonsense. So you want to tell me that around a few million of women will decide who's going to be the next president just on the issue of abortion, whether they think he's going to ban the abortion or not. That's it.
We know overwhelmingly that women choose their political decisions based on abortion. Yeah.
How about their husbands? Where are the husbands?
No, it's funny because especially this next generation, young men are the opposite. They've never polled more conservative.
Of course.
Yeah, and so it's a huge divide, and they're pitting the sexes against each other too, which isn't helpful. But feminism has created a toxic environment where women hate men, and then men, because of that negative stigma and because of all of the socioeconomic factors combined with the fact that men, when they're mistreated, they end up just turning inward and becoming selfish pieces of crap, And so it's a vicious cycle where men, when they don't get respect, they start using women, and women, when they aren't loved, they don't give respect. And so I think that the sexes have been kind of pitted against each other. And in this regard, you have a whole host of men that they've literally had their offspring torn limb from limb. And they've had absolutely zero say on it. I mean, I've seen some of the worst things I've seen is men outside of abortion clinics pleading and screaming and crying, please don't kill our baby, please don't kill our baby. And he has absolutely
You've seen it with your own eyes?
Yeah, man. And he has absolutely no power. She can just walk in there, literally pull the arms and legs off of his child, and he has absolutely no say.
So if you take power from the women of sex, because women control mostly men just by having or not having sex with them, but more and more males are attracted to porn.
Yeah.
So it means the division between men and women are
totally
becoming
So it's like,
bigger and bigger.
well, think about what that does to a man in terms of trust, vulnerability. Think about what that does to his soul and his bitterness now. So he's either hell-bent against women now forever, to where he's just going to use them sexually like objects, or avoid them altogether and just get off on porn and never avoid any type of responsibility and live in a collocated castle of his own selfish desires. And then women, are disillusioned when they have been woken up at 38 years old, almost past their prime, and past their prime, but almost past their childbearing years, and then have realized that feminism has lied to them, that they're not happy, that they've had all the sex and the careers and everything, and they're living alone in a furnished great apartment or a house, and they're just completely unfulfilled.
It's empty.
Yeah.
No one's there.
Yeah.
Just her and her cat.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
Cats.
Yeah, and that all of her fur babies can never complete her, It's wild, man. And this is what's being sold to people. And our population numbers are like below replacement. Yeah, below replacement.
So I watched this video that surfaced, I want to say, 10 days ago. Jubilee channel. Do you know the channel? Did you see Charlie Kirk versus 20 liberals?
I saw a couple of clips of it.
Did you see where he debates abortion with them?
Yeah.
Did you see the last one that asked him whether his 10-year-old daughter gets pregnant, whether she's getting an abortion or not?
I didn't see that, no.
So he says, yeah, she's not getting abortion.
Yeah.
She lost her mind.
Wow.
Literally. I'm gonna pause this video. I'm gonna show you because you have to see it.
Wow.
There is so much hate and vain in that woman just because he said this. That's incredible. You know what's the
first
kicker?
thing I noticed with that was how bitter she is, right? So
she's a psychiatrist.
Oh wow. How bitter and angry she was from the
exactly.
very beginning,
That's what
right?
I saw.
The second thing I noticed was how she used euphemisms. The use of euphemism.
You mean changing the word, the meanings?
No,
the word?
euphemism is like a way to soften language. So it's not a baby, or it's a pregnancy, right? Right.
Fetus.
The pregnancy. You're not terminating your offspring. You're not even terminating a fetus. You're terminating a pregnancy, right? The second thing she said was, it's a clump of cells, right? Which is nebulous. Is it, okay, you and I are clumps of cells. So this is dehumanizing language is another word for a euphemism. So euphemistic bigotry is, if they didn't have that, they would have nothing. The other thing in reference to that is this, like this, what I will often do when I'm debating this topic, when they bring up rape, is a couple things. First, I'll say, okay, wait, hold on. Say I agree with you. We can talk about rape later, but I say I agree with you, and then I just say, you can kill a baby. I'm just going to let you give an exception to kill a baby for the cases of rape. Are you against all the other ones, or are you just using the instance of rape to justify the other 99.9% of cases? Because rape is less than 1%, right, of the cases.
And it's subjective.
Sure, absolutely, right? But if, say I agree, are you then going to say, okay, I'm against all the other forms of abortion? Or are you just using a rape to justify the other 100%, right? So that's first of all. But then second of all, I say, what's something like, look, I'm going to ask you a stupid question here, but I know why rape is wrong, and I agree it's wrong. But from your perspective, why is rape wrong? Are you kidding me? You're doing something to somebody's body you don't have permission to do.
Say it once again.
Say it one more time. You're doing something to someone else's body you don't have permission to do. Thank you for that wonderful pro-life argument. Because the reason, if you are against fundamentally, and as a matter of first principles, against rape because you're violating someone else's body, then by the same standard, you should be against abortion because you're killing someone else's body. If what's in the womb isn't someone else's body, I don't give a rip what you do with your body. I care very much about whether you are going to use your body to kill another human being, and that's why we're against abortion, right? The third thing is, how crazy is it that we think that the solution to this young girl being violently assaulted by the worst demon ever that deserves, in my opinion, the death penalty, right?
Agreed.
Why, how crazy and how demonic is it that we think that somehow going inside of her again and violating her again with surgical instruments and hacking up her child is somehow going to heal her from that trauma? It's utter insanity. But this is even propagated and pushed and peddled, this type of rhetoric and talking points, even by people in the conservative movement or even by Christians. To me, it is insane. Look, horrible situation, but two wrongs don't make a right, and abortion does not heal anyone. In fact, every single study ever done on post-abortive women that have been raped says that by every metric, suicidation goes down, depression goes down, everything if they keep their baby. Look, would they have some temporary relief? Maybe. Let's grant that. But every metric says that even after that is gone, they're just destroyed. Their literal souls are raped in the process because now they've been violated and they've actually turned into a person that has to deal with a lifetime of consequences of killing their own child.
By the way, death penalty is, they say death penalty is what? Not compassionate.
Yeah, right.
We shouldn't do death penalties to heinous criminals because it's not compassionate. And the words that they try to soften those horrible words is, abortion is not an abortion. That's healthcare. Mm-hmm. How can you be against women's healthcare? Yeah. You're what? Misogynist? Yeah. You're a bigot. You hate women.
So there with the euphemism, right? Notice the euphemism. It's healthcare. It's
healthcare.
It's not.
Who's
how we
healthcare?
Normally have described the medical procedure is you literally tear the arms and legs off of these babies or suction their little lifeless bodies into a little canister, or chemically poison them in the womb.
Or
It's
taking the
healthcare.
needle to the heart and stop it.
Yeah.
How's it called?
Yeah, so that's in the second or third trimester, labor induction, where they use a medication called digoxin to give the baby a mini heart attack, and then they induce the child into labor. Our foremost goal is to wake up the church, and so
The church?
yeah. So, man, if we're losing the church. I mean,
What do you mean? They're packed. I've been to, I want to say, 5 different churches. They're all packed.
studies show half of the women who had abortions were attending church that month.
Oh, so they go to the church,
Yeah.
but they're not true believers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge problem, right? And so we need, if churches can't rise up and end this, then no one will be able to. And that's my contention, is that I'm not primarily interested in political solutions, because this is politics is downstream of culture. And so
If you change the culture, you won't need any politics to change it.
Well, yeah, sure. I do. I think it's both and, because the human heart is evil, right? So the only reason why I don't speed is because there's speed limits, and I can potentially, there's consequences for my actions, right? So the law is a tutor, and it reflects and teaches the human heart. And so we see this weird phenomenon when we end up not legislating something, you have more of it, So I do think that the law, even in a just and righteous people, should be there. But I forgot what I was saying before that.
So your main goal is churches.
Yeah. So we need to wake up the church. We need to get them activated. We need to change hearts and minds. And
by how? By just a pastor talking by the pulpit that it's
conversations
bad?
like this, like on the people listening here, information. Dude, it turns out it's really hard to defend child killing. It's really hard to defend killing a human being. Most of the time, people end up allowing for these laws. They end up voting for these laws because they're not informed.
Yeah, just like me a few years
They
ago.
think that if because you're pro-life, that women are going to die if you get these lies. People's hearts and minds are changed just by learning the truth. So when you understand how abortion procedures are even performed, so many of the lies and propaganda are quelched, because you understand knowledge is power, and they feed on ignorance. So another way that the primary way I think that they are propagandizing and lying to people is with this medical necessity that abortion saves lives and women are going to die if they don't get abortions.
Women can die, but a baby dies for sure.
Well, yeah, every little woman dies, right, in an abortion.
Yes, 50-50 chance, by the way, that you kill a woman, a future woman.
Exactly. But I forgot my train of thought. What was I talking about? The
church and the one-to-one conversation, informing people.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you want to turn churches into this safe place where women can go up to, so for instance, a pastor and have a conversation one-to-one. Hello, Pastor John, I'm pregnant. I'm thinking of getting rid of it. This is the goal?
No, I mean, if women are in crisis, if women are in need, the first place of refuge that they should be able to go to is the church. We used to, we forget churches were the ones that made all the hospitals and all of these institutions. They're the ones that built them, that the liberal establishment later took over. American Red Cross was started by Christians. Name it. You name the humanitarian effort. It was all started by Christians. And so the church should get back to, Big Daddy government shouldn't be the solution. It should be individuals who take care of societal ills and provide for orphans and widows again.
But the problem with the churches right now is what? The pastors keep the distance from their congregates, or what?
Well, I think it's one of the things, people aren't catechized. They're not taught, right? So the churches aren't even talking about abortion.
Why? It's uncomfortable. They're going to lose
because money.
There's such sell-offs.
It's money, man. It's because they're afraid people will leave if they talk about controversial issues, and so they don't talk about politics at all, any political issues. And what the enemy has learned is he's crafty. Mm-hmm. He's recognized that all he has to do, Satan has to do, evil has to do, is to market everything moral, political, and then he can ensure the silence of the church. I mean, Jesus said that the church of God is the light of the world. It's the salt of the earth. It's the city set on a hill, like a beacon of light for people lost at sea, And so we should be the conscience of every other sphere of human existence, the family, the state, every other area of government should be informed. It's the last line of defense because the church is the place that should be informing the moral intuitions and moral formation of individuals.
But the churches right now is like the supply and demand, right? If there is a weak pastor, a weak church, and people wake up and say, I'm not going to go to this weak-ass church, so the attendance goes down, the church does not get any congregants and any money, right?
Yep.
At the same time, there is another church where the pastor is strong physically and mentally. He praises God, and more people are drawn to that church, and they get more money, and maybe the church gets bigger, or they get another building somewhere in another city or a few miles away. So it's just the supply and demand.
That's something we learned in COVID, honestly. That was a hypothesis that wasn't really tested by most churches. And then the government shut down, and then they shut churches down and leave strip clubs and weed shops open. And that's exactly what happened. And churches shut down, and the ones that stayed open exploded. And it turns out people are hungry for moral leadership.
People hate tyranny. They
hate tyranny. They hate evil. And so there's always a true remnant that's going to rise up, and it's a matter if you feed, you can't, dogs aren't hungry for goldfish food. It's like you got to feed. If you want sheep instead of goats, you got to feed them sheep food. And so we've been trying to keep whatever you use to get people in the pews, you're going to have to use to keep them there. And so if you're using pop psychology and not real truth, then you're going to have to keep them with propaganda and pop psychology instead. But people are really hungry for the truth. They don't want. There's a massive influx of Catholic and Orthodox now because people are so sick of this. Not only that, but like the rock concerts and the smoke machines. They're like, I don't want that. That's like me-centered, whatever that is. It's just like clearly consumeristic and market-driven. I want something transcendent that isn't about me. And so that's what they're hungry for, and that's what they're hearing when churches rise up and actually preach the truth into a dark culture.
Do you go to church right now?
Yeah.
Why?
Why do I go to church?
No. Why do you go to church? Why do you attend the church?
Oh, what do you mean?
Because you've studied the Bible, right?
Yeah. No, I mean...
But people still go for decades. They've read Bible dozens of times.
Oh, totally. Well, I mean, like the church is a place where, these leaders watch over your soul, right? So you need other believers. You need spiritual leadership in your life. The church is the place where the sacraments are administered, and the grace of God is you feed on Christ. So that's the place where we experience Him. The Word is preached, and that we grow in our faith. So there's no such thing as a Lone Ranger Christian. Mm-hmm. God established churches. And not just lone Christians.
So I go to church because of two reasons, mainly two reasons. Reason number one is I'm only reading the Bible, and I have a lot of questions, especially even if I would read the Bible, and I will read maybe this year, maybe next year, because that's a big book, right? But you have to know the context. And the context you will know by reading other books, but you don't know which books to read. So you have to listen to pastor if you like the pastor that is in your church. And the second reason is because I love the people that attend the church, because they are aligned with me morally and in all other aspects.
Yeah.
If I want to be around people that are similar to me, the church is one of the places where I go.
Yeah.
If I go to LA downtown, these are not my people. If I go to Skid Row, these are not my people. I want to be around the people that I align with. That's one of the main reasons why I go to church.
Yeah.
Bible helped me to realize one thing that I couldn't realize for more than 1 decade, for more than 15 years. Only Bible helped me realize how pornography is bad and how badly it influences every man's life.
Yeah.
Only God, Jesus Christ, helped me to realize and acknowledge it. But once you get rid of it in your life, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, totally.
And if we see the trends right now, just like we mentioned before, pornography is rising.
Yeah.
And rising not only amongst men, but women as well.
Totally.
And it's, I want to say, more than half of population just watch pornography and masturbate and please themselves.
Pornography, again, earlier I mentioned Gnosticism. In Gnosticism, this is idea that you can kind of separate the self, the person, between
your body,
your body and who you are in this kind of spiritual realm, right? That the spiritual realm is this real you and the body is inconsequential. But we understand that with transgenderism and homosexuality and abortion, but pornography is Gnosticism, because you are separating the whole person and using their body in a way that is objectifying them. So you're saying, I'm not committed to you. I don't care about you. I'm going to use you as a piece of meat in your flesh for my own sexual gratification, as if I can separate you and love and concern and care and marital fidelity from who you are as a piece of flesh, objectifying women. Pornography is Gnosticism.
And it's basically it's a drug. So the problem with the drugs is that you get the reward by doing nothing. By taking the heroin or cocaine, right? You feel amazing. You're the king of the world, but you did nothing. You just snorted the powder.
Yep.
But that's the same thing. You did nothing but to have an ejaculation, right? You ejaculated, you jerked off, but you did nothing physically. You didn't have even an interaction with a woman. You didn't go out with this woman. You didn't talk to her. You didn't even meet her. You just got the reward. That's the same drug. That's the same addiction. And a lot of people are just addicted to this by not even knowing that. They can't even admit this.
Absolutely.
No, I'm not addicted to porn. Okay, can you not watch it for a week? Yes, I can, but why would I?
Yeah.
Test yourself.
Well, and
Guys,
it rewires your brain too, is the other thing people don't realize. So there's a certain level of hormones that are released and chemicals that are released when you have an orgasm in a normal committed relationship. You have oxytocin, dopamine. But they've studied the brain chemistry of people who use pornography, and it hijacks the reward system of your brain. You always need the chemicals that are released during porn use, illicit porn use, is very different than the chemicals that are released during a normal, consensual kind of committed relationship. And it's more adrenaline. It's this shocking kind of like, wow, like this is a forbidden thing that this is new and exciting. It's adrenaline that's released, norepinephrine that's released. And so what is akin to that is the same chemicals that are released when you engage in literally cocaine or heroin, right? So this is just kind of massive dopamine rush, but then also adrenaline. And so what ends up needing, just like drugs, you need harder and harder stuff to reach that level of adrenaline rush that you had the first time. You know, if you did skydiving every day, guess what? My 200th skydive isn't going to feel like the first anymore. And I need harder and harder things in order to get that same feeling. So it literally hijacks your reward system in your brain. And suddenly I'm no longer attracted to my wife, to the person that I'm covenantly committed to. They don't get me off anymore because I've rewired my brain to be attracted to harder and harder things. This is why pedophilia is rampant. This is why sadomasochistic types and bondage and all that stuff is exploded. This is why LGBT homosexuality is exploded, partly due to porn use.
And you start with just watching a threesome, gangbang, something like this, right?
Choking and all this type of violent material, because your brain needs harder and harder, more shocking things in order to achieve stimulation. And so this is why porn is so dangerous. There's such a thing called as PIDE, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, exploded, man. The instances of porn erectile dysfunction is off the charts. Men are needing, in their 20s now, are needing things like,
threesome, choking, gangbang.
Well, no, like actual medications.
Like with the dysfunction.
Yeah, for erectile dysfunction. I'm blanking on the name.
What's your favorite food?
Probably pizza.
Let's say you have this amazing Italian pizza every day.
Yeah.
3 times a day. You don't want pizza every day?
No.
You don't have sex every day. Only if you're 20 years old and you just started dating, right?
Exactly.
That's the whole point. You have sex 2 times, 3 times a week, but you're looking for it. You're awaiting. You're doing something. You're engaging with your wife. You're engaging with a woman. And then you get it. That's why you get those emotions, those feelings. But if you jerk off 2-3 times a day, it's like it's almost like this freaking body of mine. It demands me to ejaculate. And I have to do something with my body by just watching some kind of video, jerking off, because my body, which I hate, needs it. It demands it. I hate my body.
Yeah, you become a slave to your own passions.
But once you get off this needle, you realize, what the hell was that?
Yeah,
but you have to get off of this.
Yeah.
It's impossible to
man. Especially people who are first getting off of pornography, I would highly recommend some type of a accountability system. Like there's a Covenant Eyes.
What is that?
Covenant Eyes is an app you can put on your phone or devices, and it either blocks the device or actually it's kind of wild, but it really works. It will send blurred out screenshots of your phone without you realizing them several times a day to an accountability partner. So
say it once again. That's an app.
Yeah. So it's called Covenant Eyes. And so what it'll do is you'll just be on your phone, say, or your computer device. It randomly takes screenshots and compiles a database of blurred out, but you can still see behind the blur what is behind there, but it's blurred out, these screenshots. And it sends a daily or weekly list of screenshots and your accountability part, and it'll highlight if there's any flagged events that are more suspicious towards porn use. And there's nothing more of a deterrent to looking at inappropriate things on your phone than having an accountability partner like your. I mean, dude, if you really got
your mama,
or your
not even
mother-in-law,
wife, your kid's teacher,
exactly, as your accountability partner. And so, guys, because of how addicting it is, I really recommend guys start off with that, until they can get it to a level they can control.
You know what I like about the Bible is that it says that there's either good or evil. There's nothing in between, right? You can be a lukewarm. You either believe in Jesus Christ or you worship the Satan. That's it. So that's the same thing with everything in life. So you can be kinda pro-life, kinda pro-abortion. You can be kinda not watching pornography. I'm kinda not an alcoholic or a drug addict. You're either an addict You're addicted to something: cigarettes, nicotine,
Yeah.
food, sugar, cocaine, pornography, or something else. You're either pro-abortion or pro-life.
Yeah.
Nothing in between. You have
Totally.
to decide.
Yeah.
But the whole society tells us there is no black or white. There are only shades of gray.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. That's the middle ground is not good for us.
Yeah. No.
This is bad.
absolutely.
That's it. We have to
Yeah.
know that this is bad. And the things that I'm trying to teach my son is you have to take a decision. This is good or bad. This is evil or good. This is against or pro something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to do, even if you're a grown-up man.
We've been sold this lie that freedom is a life without any boundaries or any limits or anything, any constraints, and that could not be further from the truth. You know, it's crazy, as if like you would think that you can't be free unless you allow murder or something. You know, it's like without moral constraints, those are the things that actually allow for freedom. You know, what kind of world would we live in if you could just do anything you wanted, no matter how heinous or evil it is? And so virtue is necessary for a free society. Mm-hmm. Because of the fact that if you're not in control of your own faculties, if you're not capable of self-government, there will be no amount of government outside of that is going to be able to restrain civilization. And so this is why the founding fathers all understood that the freest society was one that was Christian, and they enshrined Christian values into our founding documents. 9 out of the 13 colonies of the original colonies of America all had distinctly Christian denominations in the state constitutions of them. You know, I think it was John Adams who said the Constitution was written for a moral and religious people. It's wholly incapable or incompetent for a government, of any other. And because they understood something that we don't, that big government is only necessary for a society that's enslaved by its own passions.
Where do you see America in 10 years?
Realistically or optimistically?
Realistically, of course.
Man, I'm not overly optimistic.
It's not the rock bottom. You're saying that you didn't.
Yeah, in 10 years, I think we are either. I hope it's not civil war, but
no. I mean, abortion-wise.
Okay.
I hope it's not civil war, bro. I live here.
Well, I mean,
no civil war.
It's brewing up. I think within the next 10 years, that's entirely possible based on how the trajectory of America is going. It's wild. Right now, we're amidst in this election season. You're seeing it. There's massive unrest brewing under the surface. And there's a lot of a huge cultural divide of people that are getting more and more misaligned in their core values. So it's a powder keg, man. But in terms of the pro-life movement, I'm not overly optimistic for a few reasons. I am and I'm not. Like, what fires me up and what really encourages me, brother, is we are growing like crazy. People are hungry and fired up that, like, dude, what could be more important than the fact that they're literally killing children? How in the hell did we let this happen?
How do you calculate it?
People are going to look back at this time and just going to be like, how in the world did they think it was okay to do that to a child? And so, people are understanding that, dude. And I am actually really optimistic I'm just flooded with people that want to get involved. It's unbelievable. And I've been in this full time for 5 years, but for about 8 to 10 years now. And I've never seen, COVID really
opened
the eyes of people to a lot of things. It really is spiritual awakening for a lot of people, dude. And that's what gives me hope and optimism. is to see how many people are starting to just be completely spiritually awakened to the evils around them and to try to start to fight back.
Because it was so bad.
Yeah, but I'm worried about these state referendums because the pro-aborts they're scared of that, right? So they know that we could potentially turn states and make them abortion free. And so what they're trying to do is enshrine it in these state constitutions rather than pass pro-life laws. Because say I pass pro-life legislation through the legislature in a state, well, if they get a ballot initiative passed, then that until it's repealed is a way to enshrine that and to ensure any pro-life legislation is null and void.
So the biggest beneficiaries of abortions are the clinics. They get a lot of money from that, right?
Oh yeah, abortion is, it's anywhere up to from $500 to $2,000 for an abortion, depending on factors, gestational limits, and.
Does the healthcare cover it?
Some do, some don't. So some insurances will cover abortions for low-income people. There's some situations where Medicare and stuff will, and that's what we're trying. There was something called the Hyde Amendment that prevented federal funding for abortions, but they've been trying to repeal the Hyde Amendment too, and we give almost $1 billion a year to Planned Parenthood. Almost $1 billion. Almost $1 billion.
I like how you act with billions, 200 billions to Ukraine, $1 billion here,
right?
20 billion to solve the homelessness problem in California. No accountability. Can someone send me like 1/10 of a billion?
Yep.
I'll buy some new cameras.
We give $1.8 million of taxpayer money to Planned Parenthood every single day.
1.8 million a day. 600 a year. Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming, AJ. Thank you for everything that you do. Any call to action to the audience?
Man, if you want to get involved, we need you. We have to change this country and stop the bloodshed.
By the way, are they done with getting you in prison? Pro-life activists?
Not yet. That's a whole nother topic, maybe for another day. Yeah. But I'm still battling. They're trying to throw all this kinds of crazy BS stuff with me. It's
not you, other pro-life activists.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I have 4 friends that are sitting in federal prison right now for literally peaceful, nonviolent protests, sit-ins.
That's a bad ad. Get involved.
Yeah.
Go to prison.
So I have a friend, my friend Lauren Handy. She is she'll be in prison for 4 years for nonviolently sitting down inside of an abortion clinic. The same crime that if it was done in a grocery store would have been 2 hours in jail and $150 fine. She's sitting in 4 years of federal prison.
What did she do?
She literally just sat inside an abortion clinic and blocked entrance to an abortion clinic nonviolently.
4 years.
4 years in federal prison.
I'll pray for those people. Thank you, AJ.
My pleasure, brother. Thanks for all you do, man. Yeah, so if you want to get involved, as I was saying, you can go to thewhiterose.life on
at least watch the movie.
Yeah. If you want to see the film, we're going to be releasing the film the first week of October. You can go to on streaming services. So you can go to the 1916project.com. If you want to check me out and follow my work or get involved and ask how you can get involved, you can follow me Instagram, X, AJ Hurley Life on X.
OnlyFans? No.
No, OnlyFans. That's
Not anymore?
Oh man, But if I get hard up, you never know. Yeah, not a very pro-life thing to do. Or maybe it is. I don't.
There are some people that do content for OnlyFans. A few fighters. No sexual.
No sexual thing. Well, just I'm giving money to that.
Good platform.
Yeah, pretty evil. Anyway, you can find me on Instagram, AJ Hurley, Instagram, Facebook.
Go to the highlights and
you
watch
can page me.
Justice for the Five. But just don't eat
just
at
kidding.
this moment. You're going to get sick.
Yeah.
The
You
highlights.
can go to JusticeForTheFive.com and see the babies that we uncovered in Washington, D.C. And yeah, man, pray for us. Pray for us. Pray for this work. It's a lot of, I'm exhausted. There's a lot of work to be done. And got to wake up America.
Amen.
Save these babies. Save the babies. Save all the babies.
And make new ones.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a mission.